Okay, let's go. Hey, why the Los Angeles Lakers have to solve this problem right now? Hey, the Los Angeles Lakers are one of the most improved teams heading into next season, at least on paper, yo. Okay, they traded away Kyle Kuzma, KCP, Montrezl Harrell. They let Carl Caruso go and brought in a plethora of old heads. I mean veterans, y'all. And while it seems at first glance, it could also mean trouble in the locker room, as most of these players are used to being leaders and alpha dogs throughout their own careers. That's why Lakers legend James Worthy is slightly concerned about the Lakers' chemistry at the moment. He claimed they'll all need to choose more vocal leaders. It could be because all of those leaders bring a ton of experience. Worthy said on the Spectrum Sportsnet, "Last year we were fortunate enough to have Jared Dudley being one of those guys. And the year before that, it was Rondo. But when you got a collective effort, I think you have to choose the ones who have to be vocal. And I think veterans have a tendency to do that. Wayne Ellington is not that guy, not a big vocal guy. I think in practice you have to get that type of encouragement. Bazemore is more of a kind of, I'll show you what I can do. So I think there are certain guys like Rondo who has an amount of value when he speaks. Carmelo's been around for a while. He'll probably add some value as well. I think that players who know who has the voice and they kind of allow that to play out. Hey, that's an interesting take for sure. But you could argue that those players being veterans will help them, put their egos to the side for a common goal and a greater good. So Rajon Rondo gives the purple and gold a true point guard that can add depth and quality in the backcourt. His pedigree as a two-time NBA champion will make him ideal on his roster full of veterans. While the Lakers have caught some flack overall because of the age of this roster, Rondo sees this experience as a strength. The 35-year-old have taken a leadership role in every locker room that he's been in throughout his career, and he believes that being consistent both on the court and off the court is the key. Here's a quote. "You can't pick and choose when you want to be a leader," Rondo said. "You got guys to show up every day, guys that watch you, young and old. You're being critiqued or judged regardless of how the outcome you feel that morning. You try to show up and be consistent. No one likes a guy that just talks about it. You do it with your work. You do it with your discipline and consistency. For me, for the most part, is understanding that I don't know it all. Hey, I'm a willing listener. I can learn from a Malik Monk versus a Trevor Ariza. I have an open mindset, and not being closed off, thinking that I know it all, is the key, as well as being a leader and the things I've grown from in the past." Hey, Rajon Rondo has made it clear that winning another NBA championship is the main goal for him. However, he is willing to play any role that he needs to on his team in order to make that come to fruition. Alright, about 2 weeks ago, Russell Westbrook went to LeBron James' home and together and Anthony Davis, and they had a conversation about the All-Star joining James and Davis on the Lakers. They talked about putting their egos aside and playing for that one quest, and that's to bring the Lakers another NBA championship. Westbrook talked about his only intentions was winning and coming back home to Los Angeles to win an NBA championship. And this is from LA Times, our guy Broderick Turner was goody. LeBron James and Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook, they could boom and bust some things down for the purple and gold, but the three superstars have vowed that they'll do whatever it takes to make this thing happen. Now, is it possible to have too much of a good thing? Hey, when building out an NBA roster that is full of talented players, you're likely going to find some reasonable arguments on both sides. Hey, listen, man, on one hand, the NBA is a very talented league. We know that. And the goal should be is to get as much as you possibly can out of it. But on the other hand, there are a lot of guys who are economists, and they will call the law of diminishing returns, would state at some point, when you have an investment such as this one, it could go down to resources, if that. When implying this is a team that is rebuilding a roster, constructing it from top to bottom, this could play out in various ways, but it will most likely come back with people asking, people to do something less than they typically would, you dig what I'm saying? In some cases, or to do nothing at all, and they will still have to be okay with it. And some people will have to be cool with that, to get paid the same amount to do a little less or nothing at all. Sign me up. But most professional athletes aren't wired that way, because most professional athletes want to play and contribute in tangible ways on the basketball court, you dig? And with this as a backdrop to a title defense that wasn't, you have to imagine what a guy like Pelinka was thinking during the offseason when he was building the roster, right? Not again. I'm not going to make some of the same mistakes I made last time with the last team. Pelinka wasn't going to allow his team to crumble under the weight of injuries again or absences. Or could he avoid it? No, he was going to find a way to build a roster that could be a better deal with a scenario like the one that ransacked them last year. So Pelinka used the tools at his disposal to try to build out the best roster that he possibly could to come back. He consolidated several roles and players and traded for, superstars such as Brody Westbrook, who isn't the perfect player by any means. But, he has that type of game that could raise the floor. Hey, he could be improving as well. He could be a great offensive initiator for those guys, especially if a guy like LeBron James and Anthony Davis were to be hurt or unavailable. Then the rest of his resources, he convinced that the most of the talented players he would take the money if he had less offered, you know what I'm saying? And with that hopes, he could allure the living of Los Angeles, playing for the Lakers, and bringing home another NBA championship next to LeBron James and AD would be close to ideal, a nice deal. So a guy like Taylor Horton-Tucker returned on a solid contract. Kendrick Nunn signed a taxpayer mid-level exception. And the result is a roster that currently stands with 13 players deep, all of whom could argue they're good enough to play multiple shifts at night. With the guards, you got Westbrook, THT, Kendrick Nunn, Kent Bazemore, Malik Monk, Wayne Ellington, Rajon Rondo. In the forwards, we got LeBron James, AD, Carmelo Anthony, and Trevor Ariza. And at the center spot, you got Dwight Howard and Marc Gasol, and DeAndre Jordan. So if anyone that is equipped to handle this type of situation, it's Frank Vogel. With his straightforward communication style that is honest, honest-based transparency type deal. He's very good at setting the tone right away with his players, establishing roles and following through in order to meet expectations that he set. Need a movement shooter who can space the floor and draw help on the perimeter as well. And you got a guy like, Wayne Ellington. Need a more focused defense type guy, spot-up shooter who can thrive in transition. Then you got Bazemore. Need a creating combo guard, who can do really well in pick and rolls and get buckets, then Nunn, you're up. Or if you want a downhill type player, then you got THT. Want a pure setup guy who can organize the offense and thrive in many aspects of the game, and then you got Rajon Rondo, here's your man. Which brings me back to my opening question. Can you have too much of a good thing? Hey, I'd love to see how Frank Vogel answers these questions today. By June of 2022, my guess is that by the end of the season, like the one in October 2020, the answer will be obvious. Hey, just as obvious about how much work and political navigation it will take in order to make this thing happen.